Hi, everybody. All right, sorry I sort of skipped town. I'll tell you about it in a few minutes. Got out on vacation, completely forgot I had videos to put out into the world. All right, so in this video we are doing the very first rounds of testing the vacuum pump to actually vacuum bag and vacuum seal some carbon fiber. So, when we lay up the carbon fiber, it's laying down layers of fabric, soaking it in resin, letting all that resin cure, and hopefully when it comes out at the end, it's a nice hard plate, or whatever form we're turning it into. Adding a vacuum to that system takes a lot of the guesswork out, right? Because you got not holes, you get air bubbles inside the resin. You can get air bubbles inside, random areas of the cloth where you think you've soaked it through with resin, but you really hadn't. All kinds of stuff like that. And, you put in too much resin, so it winds up being not as strong or actually a little extra brittle. So using a vacuum really helps all those things. So what we're going to do is a couple of tests on the steel table, and we're going to do some very simple tests because the steel table is a good form to kind of mold on, right? It's flat, very shiny, it's not a lot of holes, so it just takes a little bit of mold release wax on it and everything is good. So what we're doing is cutting some 1-foot squares of carbon fiber. Actually, here I think it might only be like 8 by 8 or some scrap. But the idea is that we put the carbon cloth directly onto the steel, soak it with resin, and then add a little bit of, put the peel ply on top. And then on top of that, we put what's called a breather cloth. So when you're applying a vacuum across a large flat surface, you want to make sure that you're grabbing all of the air from every single corner. Now, if you just have one area where the air is getting sucked out of, in a corner, let's just say, there's a chance that you could accidentally create a perfect seal right around that to where no other air could get in. And so you could wind up with this bubble of air on the other side. So the idea of the breather cloth is twofold. One, it allows for air to be vacuumed away uniformly, and at the same time it helps absorb some extra resin. So that goes on top. Then on top of the breather cloth, so in order to suck the air out, we have these 2-piece valves. One of the pieces has to go underneath inside of the vacuum bag. We use basically bag material. And then the other half goes on top, punctures through, sticks in place, and everything works. The idea being that we're going to have the cloth, then the peel ply, then the breather, and then we're going to have the vacuum bag sitting on top. It's held in place by tape. I'll get into more of the details on that later. And then we suck the air out, in which case what that actually does is just imparts pressure onto the piece. All the gas is sucked out of it, and everything is good. Now oh God, here comes the violin. So because of that, there's a lot of foibles and weirdo things that can happen. We'll go into all of that stuff in more videos, but that's the gist of it, right? You're sucking all the extra air out, putting pressure on the piece uniformly, and at the same time, you're absorbing some resin, because whenever you lay up, you always want to use more resin than is needed for the job, right? Because no one's perfect, and you don't want to screw up and accidentally not put enough. But the idea behind the vacuum is that the vacuum will also remove resin via the peel ply and the breather cloth, and we'll get into all of that stuff later. Real quick, so here's why I was gone. So had to get out of town, I was going nuts, and so here's a little bit of the vacation. So my wife and I rented this RV here. Now, I've never rented an RV before, but she was a big stocked up the fridge and hit the road. We brought our old little cat with us, Fluffy. She got adjusted. That's a bad picture. She's almost 16. She had a good time. The Xanax really helped. Let's see. Cooked a ton of meat on the fire, and my wife took a selfie while peeing on a tree. I'm kidding. I was the one peeing on a tree. Again, I'm kidding. Look, I'm from Louisiana. Put me in the woods, I'm going to pee on something. Alright, in the next video we're going to actually do some real cool layup. So remember that form we made for the glare shield? We're going to be making one with the vacuum pump. So thank you for joining me. See you soon.